Hello and welcome to the second iteration of the Creation Nation podcast. This is Justin, and with me are Daniel and Jacob.
Hey, flapdoodles.
Howdy.
Yes, indeed. And today we will be discussing... what were we discussing? Oh, yes. The fictional universes that are particularly of interest that you may or may not have heard of. We'll probably only have time to talk about one or two, but we'll see how it goes. So, Jacob, what do you think about, is there a fictional universe that's out there somewhere that do you think is of particular interest?
Yeah, I mean there are a lot. You could go something cartoony like the old Mickey Mouse comic strips from the 30s. I think there was Floyd Gottfredson who did those. But something which has really stuck out in my mind lately, and I think which is even more pertinent considering the Dune movie which came out, is a short story by Walter M. Miller. Now, if you're not familiar with Walter M. Miller, he wrote basically only one novel. One was published after his death, but in his lifetime, he only wrote one real novel, and that was a book called A Canticle for Leibowitz, which is an excellent, I would highly recommend it. But he wrote a short story which was called Blood Bank. And basically, I saw Blood Bank, I forget how many pages it was, I think 17 pages or so. I found the world in Blood Bank to be as compelling or more compelling than that in Dune. And of course it was a much shorter work. Not to say that Dune's world isn't compelling. I think, who wrote Dune? Frank Herbert?
Yeah.
Was it Frank Herbert?
Yeah.
Yeah. The world in Dune is good. I don't think the writing is particularly good, but the world is interesting. But in Blood Bank, Miller, he creates this world. Why? How do you talk about that without giving away the plot? There's a big twist towards the end, you find out. But basically, man is taken to the stars, and they've forgotten about Earth. Earth has really been left to itself. It's kind of an isolated place, which has fallen into disarray, and so it's gone by the wayside. People really don't keep up with it. And the novel opens with this spaceship captain is basically being disciplined because he fired on a vessel which was attempting to render aid to a colony which had some particular illness which outbroke on it. But they would not stop, as was demanded by the whatever interstellar law, and so he opened fire on it and destroyed it. And this was an aid ship. So he's tried for that, and then he's disciplined for that, and then he has to go find out what exactly the aid ship was actually doing. If it was an aid ship, and he has to commit suicide as his, martial tradition demands, because he's from a particular planet which produces soldiers and officers, or if he can clear his name and restore his honor. But it's a very fun read, very short read. I would highly recommend it, and I think it does a good job of relating a very cool space world in a very short space. So
it's like a short story?
Yeah, it's like 17 pages. You may be able to find it online.
Oh, and what's it called again?
It's called Blood Bank. I think that's the one. Yeah, I'm almost 90% sure that's the title. I read it in a collection of short stories.
Okay, it's a short story. It's like a. So what makes it stand out? Do you think among other? Because there's a lot of sci-fi out there.
Oh yeah, I thought the space travel was cool in the world. It was a little bit believable. I liked how there were particular planets who were known for certain things, which I know has done a lot. But I like the idea of there being a military planet, which is hierarchical, like he's from. He was raised to be an honorable person. And if he's dishonored himself, he has to take what they perceive to be the honorable way out, which, would be some form of suicide. Also, I liked how, I like how Miller Yeah, you just have to read it because I can't really give away too much because there is a twist towards the end. But yeah, basically, I like the mechanics of the world, and I like and the writing also is just top notch. But yeah, I like the setup of the world. Now, again, it wasn't too deep because it was a short story, but you could have easily had a series of novels based around, this world he created. So,
Okay, so it's just it leaves a lot of believable
it's a,
opportunities for like expansion of the universe.
yeah, I'd say that it's a good building block. Yeah, exactly. It was a good
Okay.
building block for future stories, which is something Dune had too. Dune was uh, basically feudalism in space is a really neat idea. I don't think he capitalized on it well in the later novels. I mean, going from Dune, which was a decent book, great ideas, and then going from Dune to Dune Messiah is like, stepping off into a pit, I think. Um, but yeah, so I think Miller had the capability to, write a whole series of novels based upon that one short story. Unfortunately, he never did that we know of,
Hmm.
but yeah.
Okay.
But we should do this again because there are a lot of good worlds you could discuss.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. This will be like the first of many of this particular topic for sure. Now, what about you, Daniel?
Well, yeah, I have a few different thoughts. Some of them probably more conventional than others. My first thought is just automatically I go to Star Wars because I just think that universe has been so I immerse myself so much in it over the years, not only through the movies but also through many of the books, the older books, not the most recent ones which I haven't read, but it's just that universe. Especially after I would say especially when the prequel movies came out, with episode one, as much as people like to pan it, it did open up a lot of world building, um, really, world building possibilities and such. It was, yeah, and then I think that was just expanded more and more in the following two films of the prequels. But yeah, even in the just even in the very first movie, just by itself, um, you get the sense of this much greater kind of galaxy, and there's just so much potential there. And then with all the media that's come out since then, I mean, it's kind of like an ever it's yeah, kind of an ever growing thing. Now that doesn't mean that I think that recently everything that's come out has been good. Mandalorian was pretty good, I think. But anyway, that was kind of my conventional answer. As far as like books go, because movies, unless you have a series of movies, you can't really get too far into a universe in a movie. Um, so you can only do so much world building in a movie.
There's only so much
If you
time.
have a series of movies, that's another thing. But with book series, a lot of them go on for a long time. You can really develop worlds. When I was younger, I was really drawn into a series called Warriors by Aaron Hunter, which was about cats
Oh yes.
who lived in clans. Um, and it was basically, set in the world, but it was basically from like a wild cat's perspective. And it was a lot of like elements that are kind of like sort of shamanistic. Like they had like a medicine cat in each of the clans, which was like a medicine man. And then they, had like a leader and a deputy, and they had like it was very structured. And so that was kind of cool. I liked looking over the lists and seeing like, ooh, who in this clan is like, the warriors, and who are the apprentices, and the, you know, leaders and deputies and whatnot. And then, yeah, so it was kind of neat because even though it was set in a completely conventional kind of backyard setting, like in the woods, basically, in random people like humans' backyards. I just felt like it really went really deep into a kind of its own world at the same time. And then I guess a third kind of whimsical answer is the SpongeBob SquarePants world, which
Oh,
is
unexpected.
really but it's really kind of brilliant when you think about it because it mirrors like regular life so much, but it still always has its own unique kind of its own um, it is its own world still, and it retains its own world qualities and characteristics. And a lot of when our world is transplanted into Bikini Bottom at the bottom of the ocean, there's a lot of humor that just comes out of that. Like when they're put it, they make a campfire on the bottom of the ocean, and it's like, wait, we're underwater, and then it goes out, kind of thing. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I did kind of notice that with SpongeBob is that one thing they do is they never like in the visuals specifically they never just copy something from the design of something from the upper world, except for I mean, like for example, the cars aren't cars; they're like boats with wheels. And then
Yeah.
the telephones don't look like above water telephones. They look like little like pipes on a ship or something. And then the houses don't look like houses. They look like pipes. And and then
Yeah, they do.
like as the starving guy says, he's like, "What's the like the Krusty Krab is themed like underwater, so everything's got that boat look, and like it doesn't just look like a fast food
Very
restaurant."
nautical.
So they
Yeah.
kind of filter everything through a sea life lens, and then also they make all the sea creatures embody characteristics that the sea creatures have in real life. So
Yeah, yeah.
like I remember reading this obscure fact. There's like this one of the background characters like a blue fish, and he's always really like starting fights. He's the guy who's like big meaty claws, and what was the other thing?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Big meaty claws.
yeah, he just randomly starts a fight with Mr. Krabs for like no reason at all. And then also he's the guy who's like, "How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?" Anyway, and somebody brought up, "Oh yeah, that species of blue fish in real life is really aggressive." It's like, "Oh, right."
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Well, Stephen
Well, yeah, I was
Hillenburg
thinking.
is a marine biologist, so he
Yeah.
includes his love and knowledge of the undersea life into something in such a deep way that it makes such a deep way. Get it? Because it's the ocean. Anyway, so it makes it more. It convinces your mind to take it really seriously. I think when that sort of thing happens, and I think like part of that went into Star Wars as well, where George Lucas was really interested in race cars and mechanics. So he was really intent on all the technology looking very practical, which is one reason you'd be surprised how many people say, "Oh yeah, like one thing I love about Star Wars is just how the machines look so machiney," or like I mean they don't use those exact words, but you know what I mean. Like it's not just like that sort of sci-fi where they make like a shiny ship where everything's plated in chrome or something. I mean they did that with the Naboo ship, but in the
Well, did y'all?
oh yep.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, did you ever see like the cross section mechanics books for Star Wars 2, where they tried to flesh out how exactly the machines worked and all? Y'all
Yeah,
ever have those?
I
Those were
wonder
great.
who the heck
Yeah,
draws those.
I've seen those before, yeah.
Yeah, same. I wondered that. It's
Man,
like
so
some
much.
engineer.
Yeah, so much effort must go into that.
Yeah. And then in that way all the ships have like designations, like the IX something something, like all these little designations on everything. All the blasters have designations, all the droids have designations. And so if you're a techie guy, it's all just like a wonderland of techie stuff, even though none of it's like real life. So I think one of the big things about engaging fictional universes, I think, is that the creator inserts the other thing they're passionate about besides story writing, and they'll put it in there. So I guess for what's the other famous one? Yeah, Tolkien. He like he had his list of he had his list of like hobbies. Like he's into like Anglo-Saxon history and like old languages and mythology, and he takes all of those and I guess his Catholic faith, and he puts all of that together into and like his war experience and like what everything else, and he puts all of that into the great Tolkien cross section, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word, and then that way it's unique and stands out a lot better. Whereas I think a lot of lesser writers they'll be a fan of something, like they'll watch like an anime or something. Oh, I really like that anime. I want to make something like that, and then that becomes their inspiration. But because it's kind of like inbreeding, you need to have lots of different types of genes coming in to make like a top-notch kid, I guess, for like for lack of a better word. And then but I think what a lot of people do is they just obsess over like one or like one thing, and it's probably already a piece of fiction, and then they'll try to kind of clone it or make like a version that's not very much different. Whereas I think that if someone incorporates something that is a unique kind of unusual interest that they have, and then import that into their love of story writing, they can come up with something that stands out a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, derivative stuff's never. I mean, just copying something else great, you're just gonna make an inferior version of the original in most cases.
Well, it's like what you're saying about like Aragon. It feels a lot like a Lord of the Rings like clone, I guess, or ripoff or something. Like, does it have something that stands out that's not Lord of the Rings related?
There's something. I mean, surely there's something to be said for inspiration, though, and not outright. Where's the line of inspiration and copying?
Aragon was still the Aragon series was an enjoyable read. It was a fun read. I didn't feel like the universe was terribly original. And that's I just felt it was very Tolkien based. I mean, using like the same species, elves, dwarves, even a lot of the kind of geographical features I think were similar, like the way that the
I remember seeing the map,
the way that the landmass
and it was like it looks like Middle Earth on the map,
more or less, yes. But yeah, like I said, it was an enjoyable read, and it had its own characteristics and stuff, especially with the characters, and there was it wasn't completely a clone in every way for sure, but
I never read it actually, so sorry, what'd you say, Jacob, about
what?
You said the inspiration and versus
when does because certainly Tolkien, you read like there's a particular book, I don't know if you call it a book, but Legend of Sigurd and Gudrun, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but you can tell that Tolkien was influenced by certain things which came before, and he admits to that, like Beowulf.
Beowulf, of course,
and all these other Anglo-Saxon and Norse legends. Which was it Legend of Sigurd and Gudrun? One of those stories I read, they have a magic ring, which of course, that's a pretty generic item, all things considered. But at what point does it become stealing or a ripoff, or I don't know, a derivative instead of being inspired by it?
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to whether your main source of inspiration is a fictional work, especially if it's just one or two, and then whether your inspiration is a more holistic collection of all of the things that you're passionate about coming together. Because, for example, if it's like, I really like Greatest Showman, so I'm going to make something that's inspired by Greatest Showman, and then it's a musical, and it's set in the mid to late 1800s, and it has, like a lot of the characteristics are the same. Maybe it's about circus people, and then, well, you could change it up in certain ways, like make it a different time period. Like maybe have, really, really cool pop songs that throughout, but it's set in Roman times. Maybe, it can even still be a circus, but it's like, Roman times or something like that. And then that would be one more step away from being a clone, and you can take more steps to where it's equally a clone of, like, 4 or 5 different things instead of one thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, Tolkien was certainly well-rounded, which is something I don't think a lot of creators today are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, nowadays it seems like fantasy stuff in particular seems to be often, I mean, obviously I don't know everything. I'm sure there's something out there that'll blow my mind, but most of the stuff I see, like, especially like, when you look at the art that people make, it looks like it's all part of the same aesthetic family. Like, it's kind of like girls with pointy ears, really ugly green dudes, people who wear armor that's way too heavy and have weapons that are way too big, and everything has this kind of fake look to it. And it's like, it's very rare you find something that looks like particularly different, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Whereas it might just be because I just hate everything, but I'm not really sure.